right. Lane One Talk Show, episode 10. We're doing it. We got 10 in the bank here, Mark. How we doing today?
Dude, honestly, this is a milestone for me. I remember when I started at my agency Collective Measures, they asked what is a passion project you're working on outside of work that people wouldn't know unless if we asked here. And I said I started a podcast with my friend Phil, and that was one episode in. And I was like, my goal is to make it to 10 episodes, just because a lot of podcasts I feel don't make it that far, or a lot of people kind of abandon ship, because this is honestly a commitment. I'm sure it's a time dedication for you as well. We have to set time aside, and for us, we work too. So we're up early in the morning. So for us, we're doing this at the end of our day. This is post work, post run, post dinner, post washing dishes, post cleaning up the house, everything. And then we hop on these mics and we talk about what we talk about. So how I'm feeling, man, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling grateful. I'm feeling excited that we hit this milestone for me personally. I don't know if 10 was a milestone for you as well, but we made it this far, man, because you think about it, this is about 20 to 25 weeks of dedicating ourselves to recording a podcast.
Yep. It is. It is. This was a milestone for me. I had, in my various sort of organizational files, I had, 1 through 10 set up for some of the show notes and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, shout out to consistency and plugging away. We got double digits now. So yeah, man, I've really enjoyed doing this. We've gotten to some good topics. We got some more good topics today. We're gonna do check-in, check-in with both you and I. Talk about Bryan Clay, just a brief little recap, just a couple details on Arcadia. Talk a little bit about Boston Marathon, and then we're gonna get into our main topic this episode, self-sabotage, which I am very much looking forward to. Something that we can all relate to.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. But first, we have to mention a few things that happened this weekend before I dive into Bryan Clay and before I dive into what happened there. So, Phil, I know you don't like to talk about yourself. I don't know if pod listeners have caught on to that. Phil is very humble in the sense of whenever I try to bring up something great he's accomplished, he's a little bit hesitant to really want to talk about those accomplishments. But this weekend, a couple things I want you to dive into are you were inducted into the Ventura Cross Country Hall of Fame. You were asked to be the Big West broadcast team this year for track and field. How are you feeling about those things right now? I'm going to put you on the spot right now. As uncomfortable you feel, I'm sure your blood is boiling a little bit, being like, bro, I told you I don't want to talk about these things, but I'm going to ask you. So let's start off with the Ventura Cross Country Hall of Fame, and then let's go into the Big West broadcasting. So kick us off, man.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I appreciate you bringing that up. And hey, maybe this is all connected to our little pod here, but so this weekend I had the honor of being inducted into the Ventura County Cross Country Hall of Fame. That took place at Moore Park High School at the Ventura County Track and Field Championships. There are some inductees. There's about 6 or 8 of us there, and they brought they let us bring our families out. They had a special section roped off for us, and it was a nice ceremony. It was the right amount. It was like they called us all down, and then they got a hold of our coaches who coached us. Some of us had our coaches that coached us in high school. My coach, Jeff Rout, he actually he's relocated to Boise, Idaho, and he flew out for this. So I was really grateful for that. Thanks, Coach. But the rest of my coaches are local in Ventura County, and it was great. We got a nice picture of all my 4 coaches that I worked with in high school. And I had some family members that came out, sat in the stands with us, and it was great. It was a great ceremony. They gave us batons as a token, engraved custom batons, and then I also got I got an all-access Ventura County track and field cross-country card, so I can get into any Ventura County meet for free. It doesn't include CIF, but it's really
$20.
Yeah, save me $20, and me and a guest, right? So me and a guest can get into the Ojai Lake Casitas invite for free. So yeah, that was awesome, man. And it's like I kind of talked about this a little bit when we were talking about the trials, but you're reminded of your tribe that brought you up, that raised you, you know. And I was lucky enough to be a part of a really good group of families coming up in Ventura County, and not just in high school, but even before that in youth track and cross country. You know, just positive influences, positive individuals. It was like we had a group of families who everyone really wanted everyone else's kid to do just as well, if not, you know, if not even better than everyone else. Like it wasn't super, it was competitive, but we were like, we all wanted to cheer for each other. And, you know, if one family like forgot something, a snack or something, there was another cooler just right there, ready to go, you know, and, you know, we'd carpool and we would, you know, hang out in hotels and, you know, and go to dinner and things like that. So I was like doing all that stuff in like sixth, seventh, eighth grade. And a lot of those people came out on Friday night, and that was awesome. It was a great ceremony, and I'm very grateful, you know, for all the people who were able to make it, but also, you know, people who had, you know, who's been supported and you know, part of that world. And you know, people who know me. I'm very proud to be from Ventura County. It's one of those things that I that's important to me, and something that I connect with well. You know, I've made a lot of positive relationships down there. And you know, it's kind of like, you know, you're from SGV, and you see San Gabriel Valley, and you know, you know what it's like to the local landscape, all the high schools and things like that. So yeah, that was a real big honor. I was really like super stoked, and you know, thankful, grateful, all those words. And you know, we went to Topper's Pizza afterwards, which again is like when you're from Oxnard, Camarillo, Ventura, like that's where you go after the dual meet, right? You're, you know, after the dual meet, after the crosstown rival dual meet, immediately after, you're at Toppers, you're debriefing, you're celebrating, or you're game planning for, you know, trying to get back in the zone for the next meet. Because back when I was in high school, all of the league meets were just in Oxnard or Camarillo, so it was maximum 20-minute commute. And so you know, it wasn't like, you know, we weren't getting home super late, like we could get back to the high school and still have time for dinner. So yeah, we went to Topper's Pizza afterwards, and yeah, that was a ton of fun, man. It was a good connection. My mom, my dad, you know, all of our, you know, members of our extended family were there, so it was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's what everybody dreams of as runners, right? Also, real quick, just a preface for everybody, my Wi-Fi has been trashed today. So if I freeze or cut Phil off at any point, it's because my shout out Spectrum Wi-Fi keep getting ads for how great they are and how they're the best. But I've been kind of freezing and pausing all day. So if that happens on this pod, I'm so sorry. But yeah, but based on what you're saying, like that's kind of what everybody dreams of, right? A lot of people at the end of their career, especially with running, it's such an unforgiving sport for the most part, in the sense of, you know, you put in a lot of hard work for a few moments of glory along the way. We're one of the sports that trains maybe about like 8, 9, 10 months out the year, all for maybe that one or two races that wound up panning out. So at the end of your career and you hitting the twilight of your career, I don't know if you see it that way because you're still making trials and whatnot and still placing, you know, pretty high at a lot of the races you go to. But like, as you start approaching that time of your career and you start facing the mortality of your career, like the thing you dream about is at least still being acknowledged for the real career that you had, especially someone like you who's been, like, to be bluntly honest, pretty well decorated. Like you were sub 14 at Mount Sac, you were low 15 at Woodward, you were state champion. Like you have a lot of these accolades. That is one thing why when I saw that on your Instagram, and what was funny about that is you didn't really talk about it too much. I think you mentioned it. You mentioned it like a few months back that like I got inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I was like, oh, sick. And then the way I found out like that the ceremony had gone down was because you posted it on your Instagram. And it's like, damn it, Phil.
I know. I went on a secret mission, dude. I went on a mission because that was on Friday, and I took all of Friday off. And I was like, well, I took Friday off. Why not try to shoot down there and see Mark's 10K? Like, you're gonna be down there. You already have the full day off. So I was just like, I'm just gonna go on a mission And
Yeah.
I didn't tell anyone about Bryan Clay. I told you and my wife.
Yeah, dude. Even my mom was surprised. She rolled up and was like, "Wait, like what did Phil go? I saw him taking photos and stuff like that. Like, did he get hired on to like take photos?" I was like, "No, he came to," and she was like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah, he went back to Oxnard that night." She was
Yeah.
like, "So he drove all the way down to LA to watch you race a 10K, and like that's it. He didn't go out there for any other reason." I was like, "Yeah, he came out to watch. He took some photos. Like, yeah, he saw some of the other races, of course, because he's a fan of the sport. But like, he primarily just came down to watch me run a 10K and like shout encouraging things at me. And then literally after my race was over and I went to cool down, he went back to Oxnard because he had to go to this event the next day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I didn't even know you had to go back to the event the next day. You just told me like, yeah, I'm going back to Oxnard because you had Shirk's bachelor party, right?
Well, that was on Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
So it was Bryan Clay Thursday, Hall of Fame Friday, High Saturday, Sunday.
Jeez, man.
Yeah. Dude,
Yeah, quite a
I was on a mission. I was on a mission, and there was some family time, there was some non-family time.
yeah.
It was an entire mission. But yeah, it was like I was putting it together. I'm like, I can make this happen. If I leave AG like 4:30, 5 o'clock, I might have to sit in traffic for a few hours, but I'm gonna get down there. But yeah, that was a great mission. And we'll get into your Bryan Clay a little bit later.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah, no. But yeah,
let's
the
segue straight into the Big West broadcast team that you were selected for, unless if you had a little bit more to talk about on the Ventura Hall of Fame before
no,
we go.
it was great, man. It was awesome. It was a great experience, and as we go, if we future episodes something pops up, but I again, thank you everybody who came out, support, just everyone past 30 years. It's been helping me out. Next thing that was kind of in line with this was the Big West broadcast team. So basically somebody from the Big West had reached out to me, and he's a he's a Cal Poly alum, and his name is Tyler Huntley. He had reached out to me about being on the broadcast team for the Big West Track and Field Championships, which is being held at Cal Poly May 10th and 11th, I believe. And he was like, "Hey, your podcast is doing great, man. I showed it to some people, and they like what they see. They you have a good handle on the sport. We want to bring you on." And I was like, "Are you sure? Like, I don't really have a ton of experience doing this sort of thing." And he was like, "No, you're good, man. I talked to my boss, my boss's boss. You're gonna do great. You're gonna do great." And I'm like, so I thought about it over a weekend. Talked to my wife to make sure that we didn't have any other like family plans that weekend. And she was like, "Why are you even talking to me right now? Like, you need to email him back right now and tell him yes." And yeah, so I emailed him back, and I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm happy to join the broadcast team. What's the next step? What can I expect?" So yeah, I'm gonna be kind of the color commentator for the Big West Championship for the main weekend, not like the multi events, which takes place the weekend before. So yeah, man, I'm gonna be up in the booth. Yeah, so that's I mean, I'm kind of nervous. I mean, I again, I enjoy the sport. I follow the sport. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of research on, especially some of the events that are like, field events and hurdles and stuff like that. But from what I can tell, it's pretty well organized on TFers. But yeah, that's kind of a cool little development. And I thank you, Mark, for being part of this.
Yeah, man. I remember we're on that. What was it? We're doing a cool down, and or a warm up, and you were talking about whether you should do it or not. I'm like,
oh yeah, that was that weekend.
Like,
it was
I
that
think
weekend.
You'll be good. They'll have notes ready on all the. But I do get what you mean by that. It's kind of like So Sean always encourages me to do the let's run, like world bets and stuff like that. You know how Let's Run has their whole poll on like who do you think is going to win, and they have their whole contest. Like if you get it right, you can win like $100,000. And I was like, Sean, I don't know long jump, I don't know high jump, I don't know triple jump, like I don't know throws. Like there's a lot to it. That there's more to it than just sprints and distance. I was like, and for me, that's what I know. Now let's pull it back a few notches because we're not talking about Noah Lyles racing. We're not talking about Fred Curley. We're talking about Big West. We're talking about like
Right.
Cal State Long Beach's 800 guy. We're talking about Cal State Fullerton's triple jumper. Like these are athletes that and events that we're just unfamiliar with, that we're a little bit ignorant to. So I can see why at first you were hesitant, but at the same time, I feel like with the amount of notes and like the amount of preparation that they have, and usually who you see on like ESPN, and usually who you see that's not named like Adel Bolden, like a lot of them are pretty damn mediocre. So for me, I'm like the kind of people that they give these jobs to, man, like I feel like you're so far above what they're capable of that I think you're going to be okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'll take as much compliments for that as I can, because it's, I don't know a lot about the other events, but I mean, I've been doing track and field. I mean, I've been a head coach for high school track and field. I've coached cross country for 15 years. So like, I'm obviously aware of how track and field works. My sister did triple jump at Riverside. She was a conference champion. Like, so we're a track and field family. So obviously like the foundation is there, but it's like, okay, what are these guys trying to hit to get to regionals in the 400 meter, men's hurdles? Like I'm going to have to know what that is, but I'm going to, I'm a teacher and we like templates, and I'm going to put it together. I'm going to make some notes, and I'm going to have like regionals. I'm going to have, top 5 in each event. I'm going to have, conference records, that sort of thing. So, you start with the basics, and then you kind of like, then you go from there about like, okay, like, who are they going to be the main themes, where are the schools that are going to be in distance and sprints and relays and things like that. So I'm excited. I'm a Cal Poly alumni, and it's going to be held at Cal Poly, and there's going to be some exciting races, especially on like the men's distance side, that I'm going to be happy to, have a front seat.
Yeah, that'll be dope.
But yeah, dude, it's kind of been, we took about a 3-week break here since our last episode. So there's been some developments here, and it's just, it's kind of cool to see, things kind of go, see what kind of comes our way as we progress through this world of podcasting, I guess. And then that said, we did have some setbacks. I did tweak my hamstring again, doing a tempo, which I'm not too excited about, but part of the game, man. Like you said, getting to the twilight end, you can sometimes tweak yourself running 5:10 pace.
Well, I mean, and that happens to, I mean, anybody, like,
yeah,
not necessarily with where you're at in your career. I remember I was listening to, what's his name, Steven Scolian on YouTube. He has a good YouTube channel, by the way. I'll give him a shout out for that. You got to ask Blake Molly a little bit more about him. He has a little bit more color on that guy, but he has a good YouTube channel.
What's his name?
Steven Scolian. But he was talking about how the advice after he had a bad half marathon and like feeling a little banged up afterwards that Mo Farah gave him was like, first thing you got to do after like a big race is get back in the gym, not work out. Like the immediate thing you have to do is get back in the gym. So like that's something that we do think a lot of times is when after a race like the trials, I mean, you're either 1, toast and you're taking time off, or 2, you're hungry to get back. And I feel for you were hungry to get back. And the first thing that you went to was, let's try to get some workouts in. Let's try to get the ball rolling again. Maybe we're in the situation now where it's like, all right, maybe I need to get back in the gym first before getting workouts in, like get the muscles firing again.
Yeah. That's true. You're 100% right, man. I just like, I'd find like last episode, I literally said I was like finally finding my cruising altitude, and I was like just kind of burnt out on the gym because I was like I was crushing gym workouts, doing double days and stuff, and trying to get my body ready for the trials to survive 26 miles, and it paid off. I mean, for the most part, I had no major issues. I had some cramping issues, but like, and it worked. But like, I just was just like, I wanted to run. I want to do midweek long runs. I want to do intervals. I want to do tempos. I want to do long runs. I want to get back to basics. And And I just need to incorporate more of that strength and mobility stuff, which I've been doing for the past couple of days. But yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it's a real thing. I was talking to Gordon Milhort, or I don't know how to say his last name, but Bagels and Beer Gordon.
Oh, Abbott.
Is it Abbott?
Yeah, it's Gordon
Why
Abbott.
why is his name different on
Oh, I don't know what his Instagram his Instagram name is a little bit different. I need to ask him about that.
Okay, yeah. So he has a different name on Instagram, but Gordon Abbott. And he was DMing me about a point I had made on one of the podcasts, and he was talking about cross training, and he asked me about incorporating cross training into my training. And I was like, yeah, I do believe cross training works very well. However, I don't enjoy it at all. So the little time that I do have, I like to dedicate to what I actually do enjoy, which is getting out on runs, getting out on the trails, getting workouts in, midweek long runs, all that kind of stuff. And it kind of resonates with what you were saying, like talking about getting back in the gym. Like, those are not the fun parts about training for us. The fun parts are the actual running, the midweek long runs, the stuff that when we go out and we execute workouts, that's what's really a lot of fun for us. So I don't think you're the only person that might have difficulty trying to incorporate those like instant. I always struggle to say that word, but the extra stuff on the side, like the cross training, the mobility work. Mobility is something that I've definitely neglected over the last year or so.
Yeah.
The weight room. Those are all stuff that we don't enjoy doing. And a lot of time it's about having to get it done.
Yep. And I'm probably at the point where I need to reframe how I think about things, where it is in the past, 10 years ago, it was like, get your run in, and if you have time, do the strength. But now it might be get your strength in, and if you have time, run.
Yeah. So what was trending on Let's Run over the last couple days was Parker Valby's her training for a week. And she does more cross training sessions than she runs. She runs maybe 3 times a week. Like, would you personally do the sport if you only ran 3 times a week?
I mean, if I was on her level, yes. Short answer, I would on her level, but like, that's different, dude. That's like, because what does that look like for a person who isn't that elite, who's just, who runs like casual 5Ks and halves? That's just like, if you're not an elite athlete, or, you're a sort of a citizen runner, that's just being like an active person, right?
Yeah.
If you're
even let's say you're maybe a 33-minute 10K girl, because she just ran what, 30, 40 something, 30, 50 something,
30, 50.
Like, let's say you're 33, where you're like pretty good, but you're not like top level in the US. Or let's say as a guy, you're like a 29, 10, 5K, 10K guy, or like a 14-minute 5K guy. And you are running 3 days a week and cross training everything else. And we're talking about double days on the arc. We're talking about double days on the bike. We're talking about aqua jogging, all those other forms of cross training.
Probably tons of strength.
Yeah. If that was your method of training for that level, like, would you still do the sport, or do you think most people would fold?
I would do it through the end of my eligibility, at least. And I would have to maintain some level of like success on the roads, but it's like, it's really like, I don't even know, like, do you think that that's even feasible for 13 to 26 miles of training? Can you get away with 3 days a week of training for a marathon?
I don't think for a marathon, no, because there's so much muscular endurance that comes with the marathon, that I think getting in those long miles is crucial. I think you can get away with it in a 5K or a 1500, just because it's more, anaerobic. You can still get those workouts in. You can still train your muscles in a way for where they can expend energy long enough for about 5 minutes or for about 3.5 minutes to 5 minutes. Or if you're running a 5K, all the way up into that. I mean, in her case, shoot, she's running 31 minutes. But I think for a marathon, it's like, you saw what happened at Boston. A lot of it is attrition. If you don't spend the time on your legs, I just don't think that's possible.
No, there's no replacement for, and I experienced this firsthand at the trials, there's no replacement for volume in in the marathon at like a basal level. Like, I mean, I did Houston, I ran 216 off about 70 miles a week, but it's still like I was still getting 20-mile long runs, I was still getting 18-mile tempos in. And there's just no way to simulate that without doing it. You have to have that like muscular contraction. So I think, I mean, and I also think with Parker being as fast as she is, like that with a 30-minute 50-second 10K, that's a different event than somebody who's running 33, 34 minutes. You know what I mean? So like, with, it's a shorter event, right? It's shorter duration. So she can maintain a high level of intensity with lower miles because she's not running more than 30 minutes, or she's not racing for more than 31 minutes. So that 45 or 60-minute long run is still meaningful for somebody who's not running that far in the race.
Yeah, I mean, she's still doing like 13 miles for a long run.
Oh, is she? Okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's very targeted then. It's like 13-mile long run, probably like a short interval session and a long interval session, and then probably everything else on the machine.
Yeah. Like literally that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way to do it. Just really making those running days meaningful, and so you're not doing recovery days when running.
No recovery days.
No recovery. Yeah. You're probably like doing, your off days, you're probably on the machine. So yes, we are moving forward. But Mark, enough about me. We spent a lot of time talking about me. How are you doing? How's training? How's Bryan Clay? How are you doing?
Things are going well, man. Honestly, I think I can confidently say that I'm in the best shape of my life, which is pretty crazy to say because I've had a lot of mediocre races over the last month or two. But the thing about it, it's like I'm not having any bad days. I just haven't been able to string the right day together. Ultimately, my goal is to make the Olympic trials in the 10K, which is looking maybe around 28:20. We'll get in, but we'll see. Right now, 25th spot is 28:27. So for me personally, I think that's not out of my wheelhouse. I've been doing the training needed for it. So this weekend I raced at Bryan Clay. I ran a 29:05 10K, but let me take you a little bit behind that just because you look at a 29:05 and you say, doesn't look like you really have a shot at that. But for perspective, that was my first 10K in 3 years. And my whole thought process with that race was, I wanted to go out and get a time on the board. But instead, meaning that my goal was to run about 28:40, just with where I'm at in training, I thought that was very feasible. I thought that'd be very reflective of where I'm at. And based on how Joe is peaking us and what we're looking to do, my peak race is in 8 weeks. So for me, it was get a time on the board so that I have a time to enter come Portland and not have a worry about getting into that A heat. And then once Portland comes in about, I think it's June 9th or like June 6th, something like that. The idea from there would be take a swing because I have nothing to lose. Because of my goal is to get to the Olympic trials, I would take a swing, go out through the 5K and 14:10, and then pray to God and hope for the best from there. But what happened was I got greedy. I wanted it all that day. I'm a big visualization person where I'm thinking about what I want the perfect race to look like, how I want to feel, what I want to come through, what are the splits I want to hit. And I do think about the bad things that could happen as well and learn how I can prep for them and learn what I'm going to do, learn what I'm going to think about, learn what I'm going to focus on. And on that day, a perfect day would have been coming through about 14:20 and then picking off everybody that died. In my head, that's what I was going to do. But instead, I got caught up in the moment, man. I was entered in heat 1. I heard there was going to be pacers about 14:05 through 14:10 through the 5K. And my visualization had changed from what I had been thinking about for weeks, from going out conservative, picking off everybody, starting in the back, moving up, doing that strategy. I had even talked about it over text with some of my friends being like, yeah, I think I'm going to just get out and last and then just keep moving up the whole race. Instead, I went out. My mile split was perfect. I came through about 4:34. And then after that, I started seeing people fall off, and I kept being like, no, this could be the day that I knock it out the park.
Knock it out the park. Got it.
Yeah, this could be the day that I swing for the fences. So I wanted it all that day. I failed to remember that I was looking to get a time on the board. I failed to remember what the plan for the season was and where I'm at with training. And I failed to execute. And that's something I pride myself on, is that I usually say what I'm going to do before a race, and I do exactly that. Whether I could execute it or not, I set myself up for success until the last 200. And usually the last 400 to 200 determines if I was successful or not. And that race, I shot myself in the foot from the gun, meaning I got out too hard. My second mile was about a 4:29, which is creeping on 5K pace for me. And I absolutely exploded. And you were there to witness it all, Phil. And to a degree, we're going to touch on this topic, but that was self-sabotage. I had a whole plan,
Mm-hmm.
and instead my greediness shot me in the foot. And that had to 1000% been the most pain I've ever been in a race. And I came through 5K in 14:13 and faded to about a 29:05. And in reality, I think I'm in like about 28:40 shape, 28:45 shape had I gone out what I said I was going to do. But there's nothing you can do if you're running a 4:29 second mile when your goal pace was about a 4:34 to 4:36. Like, that'll do something to you. I felt lactic 6 laps in. And from there, like, you finish the race afterwards. And to me, I was like, something's wrong. Something's got to change. But once you really start to like actually settle in and really think about it, it was like, all right, I really don't need to change anything. Everything's going great. I'm doing everything right. The plan is to be sharp in 8 weeks. The plan was to get a time on the board, and I just failed to execute that day. And I'm looking, and it's innate human to want to look to blame everything around you before you really look at yourself and be like, yeah, you effed up, because no one likes to think that. Everybody looks for excuses, whether it's in work, whether it's in your relationships, whether it's in whatever it is in life. We look around first and we try to observe. Everything else is the problem. It can't be me. And you were there for me in the parking lot when I was like, dude, I got to change something, or like, I got to figure something out. But then like, you cool down, you sleep on it, you spend some time thinking about it. And that's why I don't like talking to anybody after my races when I don't perform the way I want to, is because I really irrationally.
Right.
And so to me, it was like, okay, the next day went for a run, spent some time by myself, and you really start to think about it. It's like, yeah, you just effed up, man. So that was essentially what happened with Bryan Clay. And I always tell my athletes that I coach, and I always tell my friends this quote, and I don't know why I can't seem to apply it to myself, because, you're selfish. You want more. But I always say, appreciate when the PRs come, because one day they won't come anymore. And for me, that was a 20-second PR. But I was upset about it because I thought I deserved more because of my training. I thought I deserved so much better because of what it is. But at the end of the day, with racing, you don't deserve anything. Everything you get on the track, or everything you get on the roads or on the course, all of it is deserved. I mean, it's earned. It's not deserved. No matter how good you train, no matter how well you train, it's all about how can you execute in the race, no matter how fit you are. And for me, I felt like I deserved to get that time because I had been doing everything perfect. I've been heart rate monitor for my threshold workouts. I'd been hitting my VO2 max paces. I'd been hitting every single pace, every single workout to a T. So in my head, I was like, I deserve this 28:20 tonight. Like, forget the plan. I deserve it tonight because I've done everything. And I made that decision in my warm-up. I made that decision lining up, doing my strides. Like, tonight's going to be the night. And ultimately, I think that's what ended up happening at that race. And that's a long-winded answer to say, yeah, I effed up. I ran a lot slower than I wanted to. But so I'm in a good place mentally. Once you really start to accept all the problems that you faced and everything that you did do, because, you go through the motions, you go through like almost like the 8 stages of grief. And then like, once you start to accept, like, yeah, I'm actually in a way better spot than I was. then you will start coming around and realize everything's going to be okay. Everyone that loved you before the race still loves you. It doesn't change all the training that you've done. And yeah, that doesn't mean that your season's a wash because you had one bad race, or not even a bad race at PB by 20 seconds. So it's like, okay, I remember, so like for me, there was even on like my Strava, I'm a giant queen once it comes to post race, because it's either a good result, or if I didn't get the result I wanted, it's bad. And Jake Ritter, shout out, commented on my Strava, hey, you get to update your bio now, because in my bio I have my PBs. And in my head, I was like, yeah, it's a silver lining. I do get to post a faster 10K PB. And that kind of puts things into perspective.
Right.
I remember seeing the 10 on there, and I was like, okay, so I knew as early as 6 laps in that I might not have a good day. But I was still on pace for a 28:30 through like 10 laps. I mean, through 15 laps. But 10 laps to go, there was a kid from, I think, like Huntsville, Alabama, like random D2 school, who went past me, and I was like, okay, if you can go with him, you can still run like a 28:30 something, or like 28:40 something. And I could not go. I felt the pack getting further and further and further. And that's when I knew, like, okay, so you're not running 28:30 today, but maybe we can still break 29, like based off. And I would like keep a mental note, like, okay, I saw 15:50 on the clock, or like I saw 16:30 on the clock. Let's see what I'm still hitting these splits in. And I would still see like a 70 the next time around. So I'm like, okay, so you're still running relatively quick, or like you're still not really having that bad of a day. So I was like, okay, maybe I can still salvage something pretty good. And then this pack caught up to me, and I hear a coach shout to one of his athletes, you're on pace for 28:50. And I was in that pack, and I was like, oh shoot, like this is not as bad as I think it's going.
Yeah.
And he was like, you need a good finish and you'll run under 29. And I was swimming so far on the deep end, it was unreal. That
what point in the race was that?
This was with about 4 laps to go.
4 laps, okay.
Yeah, and I needed what kills me is I need like a 2:18.800 to go under 29. And to me that would have been like a salvage day. But yeah, I ended up running like a 2:25 last 800, and that like legitimately with 600 to go, I damn near fainted. Like my vision tunneled so deep that like I could not see. I bumped into a guy in the race. That guy that we were talking to after, shout out JP. But like I was losing my motor skills, and I was like, I can't even see anymore. Like I might fall, or I should just drop out. And I was like, no, you can't. Like, because I have a record. I've never dropped out of a race in my life.
Yeah, it's a good record to keep that one going.
So for me, I was like, shoot, okay. I need to finish at this point. And I felt myself swaying. Like, last thing I remember in that race before finishing and basically waking up on the ground of someone saying, do we need to call an ambulance? Or like, do we need to call help? I was like, oh, no. Like, let me get the hell out the way. And I used a different word, but like I got up and I left. And I guess the girl had been offering me water and help for like a while. And I just like ignored her. And then like finally I zoned back in when I like saw my mom and my sister on the sideline. I was like, shoot.
Yeah. I think that's when I found you too, is when you were with your mom and your sister. That's, there's a couple of things that kind of stood out in that was, what kept you going? Like you felt like you were going to potentially fall over, you blacked out, you have fuzzy memory, you know what I mean? And you were redlining, it sounds like, with 10 laps to go. Right. And so, yeah. I mean, usually like when you felt with what you felt like with 10 laps to go, would that have been much better if it was a K to go, or maybe 800 to go?
Well, I mean, if I'm feeling that with like a K to go or 800 to go, like that's less time to be suffering. So I'm probably, if I'm not feeling like that till about a K to go or 800 to go, that's kind of what like a 5K feels like.
Yeah. Okay.
So for me, it's much easier to manage, and also it's less time to have to spend feeling like that. So you can muster up more in that short amount of time
Right.
versus 10 more laps. Like 10 more laps at that pace is what, if you want to do the math real quick, that's a good 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's a long time to be redlining for
Right.
and feeling like that. Like I'm saying, I'm not exaggerating when I say this was the worst pain in a race I think I've ever felt. And I've blown up in races pretty bad.
So how'd you do? How'd you keep going then? If you were in so much pain and you you didn't drop out and like you were able to, I mean, you definitely looked like it was challenging, but I wouldn't think it was so much like the most painful race ever. Like, how did you keep going?
I had told myself before the race over and over and over that the motto of the day is you can have a bad day any day, but today's not going to be that day. And so when I did start to feel things going south, I kept telling myself, this is what we trained for. Like my whole motto of this season has been middle of the ocean. I've told you that over and over.
Mhm.
Like it's been about learning how to suffer in those middle laps, because when you run a 10K, there's no escaping the fact. Like I've always said, running a 10K PB is the worst experience of my life that running has to offer. Because that last 2K, no matter how fit you are, hurts every single time. And it's death by 1,000 cuts. So for me, I kept telling myself before the race, you can have a bad day any single day, but today's not that day. And you're going to fight until you can't fight anymore. And for me, I'd rather find myself fading because I'm in pain than to fold. Because when you fold, it makes it a lot easier to quit in the future. And for me, that's something that I pride myself on, is I have too much love for the sport to not quit. I mean to quit during a race, to not give it everything I have. So for me at that point was, you got to give everything you have. Like you train way too hard. You have your family out here, you have your friends out here that are like coming to watch you. You've been doing things in practice that are not fun. You sacrifice way the hell too much. You owe it to yourself to not give it your best. Because for me, I don't live the ideal 28-year-old life in the sense of, you want to be going out, you want to be saying yes to all invitations, you want to be going to all these events. You see your friends go party on boats out on the lakes. Like you see all that stuff. And for me, I've had to say no to a lot of that stuff in my life to kind of be where I'm at with training and to be where I'm at with racing. So for me, when things are going hard like that, I just start going into the cookie jar. Shout out David Goggins. Like start pulling out all the reasons why you can't quit. Start pulling out all the reasons why you still have a shot. And as irrational as it gets, when the pack is pulling away from me, you shouting things like, they're coming back to you. You have people coming back to you while they're gapping me by like 50, 60 meters. And it's like, they're coming back to you. You start pulling out irrational things like that. Like you start faking reasons why you are still in it. You start making up ways to be like, okay, that might have been a 70, but guess what? You're going to have a big last 800.
Mhm.
Your last 800, you always have a big close. Like, don't worry, the last lap, you always run a 60. So no matter what you're at, you're going to run a 60. And you can kind of play tricks with yourself to
Yep.
get you to keep going hard. And
100%.
it was just lap at a time, just keep hurting.
Yeah. No, you hit it. You're spot on, man. Like when I was suffering miles 18 to 26 at the trials, I was like, you start like, oh man, that was a sub 6. Dude, that was a sub 6. You got this, bro. You got this. You got this, man. Oh, that was a 6:34. That's okay. But you start rationalizing it in your head, and you start, they're coming back, and
Yeah. You start looking for ways to like justify how bad you're feeling.
Yeah.
But that's basically how Bryan Clay was for me. That was a big learning point. And the way that I really got over that race in the sense of not hitting my goal was I actually had a phone call. I know I mentioned this guy like literally every single podcast, but shout out Aaron Potts. He called me on the phone to talk about the J. Cole and Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef. And we ended up segueing to like, oh, how's work, man? And he was talking about literally what I was saying earlier about how we want everything now because he's starting to move into like a more managerial like type role over at Hoka. And he was talking about how, and we're talking about how everyone in their career wants everything now. And like, it's okay to be where you're at and to enjoy the day to day. And he was like, yeah, man, like, I'm just doing all this stuff with Hoka. I'm doing all this stuff with my podcast, with my like with Running Report. And he's like, honestly, he's like, I'm just blessed with where I'm at right now. Like, I talked to Nick Wolf about this like all the time when I last talked to him, was like, I'm really just appreciating what I'm doing right now. I'm appreciating my day to day. I'm appreciating where in the journey I'm at the moment, and everything that I want will come, but that doesn't mean you can't enjoy where you're at now. He's like, and that comes with being an athlete, you know, like you really start to think about where you want to be as an athlete. And that's constantly what we're driving. Like from college, you want to be an All-American. From college, like you want to break these times. Post collegiately, you want to beat these times. You want to be at these races. You want to have this status. He's like, but you never really enjoy where you're at the moment. He's like, but that's usually what makes it fun, right? Is you look back and you look at the journey. And that was out of context. We didn't even really talk about my race at all. We talked about like work. We talked about Jay Colin, Kendrick Lamar, and Drake beefing. And from that, like random phone call, like I haven't talked to Aaron on the phone in I don't even know how long, but he just randomly called me. And we started talking about that. And I took this thing that I was struggling with internally from an outside conversation and was like, whoa, that actually was super applicable out the blue.
Yeah. Dude, that stuff happens, man. Like just a random call and that can just kind of reset things. It's like, and I've had that encounters too with people where something, the way they phrase it, the way the context surrounding it, just sort of, oh, that makes sense. Enjoy where you're at, right? Because even if you do make those big meets, you get into, USA outdoors, you get into US indoors, things like that, the trials, you get in and you enjoy it, and it's amazing, and it's such an achievement in that moment. But then it's over, and then you maybe have some downtime, you celebrate, you reflect, and then 2 months later, 3 months later, what are you doing?
Yeah,
you're back on that grind, right?
Yeah.
So that's such a great point, is to, hey, enjoy where you're at, especially being like blue collar runners, right? Like,
yeah,
we don't have to do this. We don't have to go in a midweek long run. We don't have to go to Planet Fitness for 42 minutes. Like, we can, and no one's going to be mad at us. No one's going to be like, oh man, Phil, hey, you didn't do your RDLs.
yeah,
like nobody's going to be mad. And like, I think that's really important to note, that enjoy the moment, enjoy the process, enjoy where you're at. I mean, I love warm-ups and cool downs, at Cuesta. That's such a fun, and that's what I hate being hurt, because I train. Okay, I want to be on the warm-up and the cool down. I don't want to be hurt. I want to be part of the workout. I want to do like 20% of the workout or 40% of the workout. I want to be there for some of it. And that's such an important part for me. But yeah, that's great. That's such a great perspective that Aaron shared with you.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll briefly go through a couple more races, and then we'll start wrapping it up. So obviously, like also at Bryan Clay, Parker Valby set the NCAA record in the 10K, running 30:50, which was an amazing effort. I mean, it was incredible to watch, because it was also pretty low key. Like, the vibe there at 10:30 at night was pretty chill. I mean, there wasn't very many people there because it was a Thursday night. It was like, the Thursday of Bryan Clay, but she was going hard, man. Like, she had a couple pacers set up for her through 5K, and they were going full gas the whole time, and they step off, and she just keeps the hammer down. And maybe this, Mark, you're a little bit more on it with the stats, but I think that times is at the top American this year.
What did Winnie Colati run?
Is she American?
Yeah, she's American. I
Okay.
think she might have run like 30:38.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I looked that up. Because I looked up sound running um and I was looking up to see if they were who was American, but I don't think I checked her. So yeah. So this is gonna be number 2 American then, right?
Yeah, there might have been a pack like pretty close to Winnie. I don't know if any of them were American off the top of my head, but Parker ran like number 6 all-time US,
All
just for
time.
context.
Yeah, and what's the Olympic standard for women in 10? Do you know?
Shoot, I can tell you
I
off the
looked
top
it
of my
up yesterday. It's gonna be close, and it might even get in on world ranking. But yeah, that was pretty solid to see. And then Salman in the 1500 in the rain runs 3:33
That is
in the.
point .2 off the NCAA record.
That's nuts. Is he like? I thought he was more of a 5K guy. Is he more of a 15?
Nah, he was 356 miler in high school.
Yeah, that's true. I just thought
356 miler.
I just saw him on the Arcadia 3200 lists. But they're probably just like that's such a hype event, you got to jump in it, right?
Yeah, I mean, the kid is so talented, but
Yeah,
I think he's definitely shown that he's a 1500 guy just because he has a 146 800 as well
yeah,
last year. So this year he can probably run 145, honestly. But
that's nuts.
yeah, 333, and he's beaten some really good people. I got to give
Yeah,
my boy Craig a shout out. He ran really well too, running 335, like his best time in a few years. And he was in that race. Reigning NCAA champ, what's his name from forgetting his name, something Green, from UW. He's the reigning, I don't know why I'm forgetting his name, but he's the reigning NCAA champ. Also, the reigning indoor champ, Luke Hauser, was in that race.
mm-hmm.
Another guy, fourth place at USA, Sam Prakel, was in that race. Former
Nathan Green.
Nathan Green, yeah.
Yep.
And then even I don't know why I'm doing terrible with the UW guys. Who made the team from UW for USA's last year? He got third. Why the hell am I forgetting his name?
Wascom.
But yeah, Joe Wascom. He was in that race as well. Absolutely exploded. They came through 800 and like 153. So like Colin beat some really freaking good guys and not bad for him. He had a pretty subpar cross country season. Last year, he had a pretty dang slow start to the year and wound up rounding into fitness pretty late in the year. I think last year at Bryan Clay as well, he ran like 338, which is like his first good race in a while. And he had on his Instagram last year, people were saying he should transfer. And there was like a workout of him on a treadmill, and he just had the caption, "Trust the process."
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was commenting, "Bro needs to transfer. He needs to leave. He needs to leave." And to watch this dude come out and like, he looks like the favorite right now in NCAAs to win it all. He's run 13:37 in the 5K at Stanford a couple weeks ago, and then now he runs 3:33, just narrowly missing the collegiate record. That was damn impressive.
And now, is he a true sophomore? Is he a second year in college total?
I believe so. Yeah, I think he's a true sophomore.
Oh man, these young guys, dude. It's like NCAA is going to be pretty lit this year, I think, for the 1500 meters.
Oh yeah,
these guys are going to be. They're going to be. I mean, are the 3 guys we send to Paris? Are they all going to be full professionals?
I mean, the way it's looking, maybe.
Yeah.
Just because with how competitive the NCAA is, like, I think if you're like a Mike Smith,
Right.
I don't know that you risk a sophomore Colin Salmon not winning an NCAA title for the sake of like having a shot at making an Olympic team, or maybe vice versa. But at the same time, Hobbs Kessler ran 332 a year ago. He ran like 333 indoor. Like Craig's a 333 guy. Cole Hawker's a 331 guy. A lot of these professionals are, queuing up to be ready for the trials and be ready in August. But I wouldn't be surprised if we had a college kid creep in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't even mention Yard Nagoose.
Yard. Yep.
Yard. 43 miler.
Yeah. Yeah. That guy. Yeah, I'm curious, dude. It's going to be a great summer. It's going to be a great summer of racing. June's going to be June's gonna be off the chain with NCs and the trials. Real quick, Nico Young, 148 flat in the Ocho. That's impressive, man. That's like that is a underrated performance right there, man. Like that guy, is he doing any kind of 800-meter work?
No. No, not at all, man. Like that guy, I think he's just training to try to, because you look at all the guys who are top in the 10K, they all can probably run 148.
Oh, that's
They
just
all
nuts.
can probably run 147.
But that's nuts to actually do it, though. How many of those guys just like opt to do a hard mid D workout, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
you know,
I'm not saying that like it's not impressive, but I'm saying like this is Nico. His sights are not on an NCAA title. Like maybe a sophomore like Colin Solomon is, but like Nico, I don't think he cares anymore. He got the monkey off his back. He dominated indoor. And I know it's not the same as outdoor, but like for him, he ran 2650. It's Olympic team or bust, and it's not looking unlikely for him because like historically what we've seen is, we would think the locks this year for the 10K are probably Woody Grant and Joe Klecker, right? We haven't seen Sean McGorty line up. We haven't seen Abdi, or we saw Abdi Nur at the Sound running meet, and he was pretty underwhelming. But Nico, like with Joe Klecker hurt right now, and he's on the Zwift grind, he's not really running. He's doing everything on the boost. He's not even getting much mileage in.
okay, wait, hold on. What is that? What are those things? What are those things you're talking about?
Oh, Zwift is biking.
Okay, Zwift
like
is...
Joe Klecker is cycling, and the boost is like a poor man's Ultra G.
Okay.
So it's actually pretty cool. So if anybody's looking for a poor means of Ultra G, look up Boost. And this is not a promotion, but Kelly Bean, I think her husband makes the boosts.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, dude, Nico continues to impress us on a regular basis. Moving on to Arcadia real quick, because we haven't talked. Arcadia happened between our last podcast and now. What was impressive to me that I wanted to bring to the show today was the Boys Invite 3,200 meters. 37 boys out of 38 broke 9 in the Invite 3,200 meters, with Daniel Simmons of American Fork running 8:34, which is phenomenal. But what I went back and I looked at is I did a little bit of a deep dive, and I looked at 15th place from the past 10 years in the Boys Invite 3,200 meters. So the Boys Invite 3,200 meters at Arcadia, 15th place, working backwards from now. 15th place this year was 8:42. Josh Bell, shout out Templeton, local Central Coast High School. So 2024, 8:42. 2023 was 8:49. 2022, 8:55. 2021, 8:58. 2019, 9 flat. Remember, there was no track and field in 2020. 2018, 8:58. 2017 was a little bit of an anomaly. That Cooper Tier, Luis G were in the race that year, so it was a stacked field. So 2017 15th place was 8:52, and then 2016 back to 9:01. 2015 8:58, and 2014 was 8:57, and those again were all the 15th places. So basically, from 2022 to now has been 8:55 or faster. Again, with the 2017 anomaly. So, what do you think it is? Why is Arcadia gotten so deep in the past 3 years? Is it the shoes? Is it the lure of Arcadia Invite? Is it the hype that come into that race and that event has been? Is it the training, double threshold? What is it, in your opinion, Mark, that has caused the depth at 3,200 meters to improve?
I think it's access to information, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is there's like, if you're a bad coach in 2024, like quit your job. I'm telling you right now, if your kids are not improving, I said it here on the pod, quit your damn job, because there's zero way you can be a bad coach in 2024 because of how much access to information there are. Like, I think a lot of these kids, because we've talked about historically, you couldn't trust kids to tempo. You couldn't trust kids to hit threshold. But now that's all stuff that they understand because all that information's out there. They can watch it's not research anymore to like when you were our age in high school, you had to do a lot of internet digging or reading lots of Runner's World. You had to find ways to find out what the pros were doing, or you had to find ways to find out what the best people were doing. And we're talking full training logs. Like you had to dig to understand what lactate threshold was or what all these guys were doing. Now all that information is available at the damn palm of your hand. You can figure out what anybody is doing on Strava. You can figure out definitions in short 15-second TikTok videos or however long they are. You can find all this information on weight training. It's not as complicated anymore. And I feel with all this information out there, learning how to pace, learning how to work out correctly, learning what's beneficial. It's all those people that were my age in high school that did everything wrong that now can teach the next generation what not to do wrong. And I think we're seeing an influx of high schoolers improving just because the information is better, the coaching is better, the technology is better, the shoes are better. Like high school kids do tempos now. High school kids do threshold now. Back then, I don't know about you, but I blindly ran, and a lot of it was I was doing some threshold, but a lot of it was I just ran as hard as I could for a lot of it. And I think now, with how much information is out there, these kids just understand more how to train. I think the kid who won Arcadia ran 13:38 for the 5K indoor. Like,
I think you're right. The kid from
yeah,
American Fork.
Yeah, they're just more aerobically developed. The information is out there for them to start running well.
No, I agree. I think the training, the data, the heart rate monitors are affordable, accessible, and easily the information is downloadable so your coach can see it like instantly on, and you can track it. You can join Strava groups, you can use apps to track your heart rate and stuff like that. And I think we're starting to see that trickle down to the high school level. And that's why that's why I think it's good to look at the high school level, because it's a good barometer for where the sport is, where training is. So because a lot of times the stuff that they're doing at the high end of pros and collegiate, there's a little bit of a lag period. It might take a couple of years for that to actually trickle down, but maybe there's less of a lag period now with what you're saying. Maybe that's like, okay, I'm following Joe Klecker and I'm going to make a high school version of this workout, right? Like I'm going to do the 5K or the 2 mile version of this 10K workout. So, no, I think the availability of information is really helping our youngsters, because basically what I'm seeing is 8:52 is like the new 9 minutes.
Yeah, literally, man. Like, I wish you could have seen my initial reaction when you told me that 15th place was like 8:42. I was like, are you effing kidding me, dude?
Yeah.
Like, that is a fast time. What's
That's
that for 3K? Like 8 flat?
8 flat. Yeah. 8 flat for 15th place high school. Good job, man.
Jeez,
Yeah.
man. Half those kids can kick my ass in a 3K right now.
Yep. Which, yeah. It really makes me want to stick to half marathons. Briefly talking about Boston Marathon, that was very recent. That was yesterday as we're recording this. First place is Lema, 2:06. He led from the gun. He was 2 minutes ahead at one point, but they reeled him into about 40 seconds, but still held on. He ran fast. Helen O'Beary won the women, 2:22. It was a close race.
Champ.
Huh? Two-time. Yep.
Yeah, and I think you won New York twice as well.
Right. She's a goat. She's getting after it. She's winning majors. Winning a major is that's got to be something special,
Oh yeah, you got to be on another level, man.
Yeah, it's Olympic level. It's elite to be able to win, to get it together on that day for a major is very impressive. Our boy Robert Miranda, we had him early in our episodes. I think episode 2, maybe 3. 216, and he finished strong. I know those hills at the end were pretty tough for him. I don't did he say he had a cramp or something? I can't remember.
I don't remember either. I don't think
I
he told me anything like that.
Did he say? I don't know. I can't remember what he said in his Strava on his Strava post, but he ran really well, 216 on that course on that day, because I heard it was a little warm towards the end of the race.
Yeah, I heard that.
You know, so shout out Robert. Great job out there. It's a very solid time. He's now put together a 214 and a 216 in less than 5-month period with CIM back in December. CJ was our top American. Shout out CJ. 209. 209 I think is pretty impressive on this course, right? Like, what did he run? 210 at the trials?
Bro, he's run 210 like 6 times in his life.
Yeah. So he ran 210 at Boston, which is probably more challenging than the trials course was. And then Emma Bates was the number 1 woman for Americans at 227. Solid race from Emma there. I know she had to pull out of the Olympic trials, but glad to see that she's back into top form. So yeah, solid performances all around from Boston. I'm sure there's some other performances that we might have overlooked, but yeah, I gotta get on that. I'll probably do Boston at some point, but not
bucket list. Hey, shout out Dougie.
Yeah, shout out Dougie. Oh yeah, shout out Dougie. Craig Kimball is his given name. He's an Aggie.
That's his government name.
That's his government. But yeah, he's an Aggie. He goes by Doug in the workout group, and he ran. What did he run? 240.
I think like 247.
247, yeah. So yeah, he's young in his post-collegiate career. He's making gains, and yeah, he's cool. Shout out Dougie. And then yeah, we had some gals running too. I think Madison was 250, and I want to say Melissa Tenkate was right around the 3-hour mark. So we had some Aggies that represented well out in Beantown. But yes, I think that's a good episode. We did have it on our agenda to talk about self-sabotage, but with over an hour 10 on the clock here, I think this is a good place to place the bookmark. Self-sabotage is a great topic, and again, I want to give it its full flowers. So we'll save that for the next episode. Thanks everyone for listening. Again, like, comment, subscribe to Lane 1 for more content. Mark, you got anything?
No, man, my Wi-Fi is struggling. Like, as soon as we hit the hour mark, like, I've been freezing every second.
Yeah, we'll try and clean that up in post. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you next time.